Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Revelations with Rowena. I promise I keep saying this every single time. We will have official intro stuffs coming soon to a live near you. And as you know, I took a week hiatus. I was on vacation with my beautiful family, and so I am back. I am rested. I have my summery yellow beach vibes top on to try to get back to it. But anyway, I am so excited to have this guest on today. Nancy Abramson, success coach, going to talk to us today. We're going to have this awesome conversation about knowing your numbers. And I know for me, as a new entrepreneur, this is going to be a very helpful and insightful topic. So, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And it is so perfect that you have me right after your vacation, because that is the thing that's so important to me, is that small business owners have thriving businesses and also love their life. And there's a balance and harmony with their personal life, and that you actually can take a vacation, because so many small business owners don't. If they're not there doing the business, then there's no money coming in, or they don't feel that they can take time off. So I just love that you took time off for you and that we're having this conversation.
Thank you. I just had a post on Instagram go up today about how I intentionally didn't check any work email for that whole week when I was on vacation, because as someone who has been like a hard worker, overworking, taking no time off, having burnout, I've learned my lesson. And so I made it very intentional. No work emails, just enjoy the time. So thank you. I received that. So yeah, I'd love to, as we start off every episode, I'd love to hear more about your story. Tell us about yourself and what led you to the amazing work that you're doing today.
So thank you. So what led me to this place is that I spent more years than I would like to admit, because then people know how old I am in reality, working insane hours. Like, it was very typical that I would be at my desk at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, looking down dark hallways while I'm stuck at work trying to get it all done and doing what was supposed to be done. Like, I just thought that that's what was expected and what everybody did. And like pining for vacation and having some time off and living to retire and living to enjoy my life later.
Yeah.
And like expecting that. And this was what was typical. I was in public accounting and then corporate accounting in New York and working insane hours. And so now I learned that it doesn't have to be that way, that I can actually have a thriving business and enjoy my life now, not sometime later. And I'm on a mission that everybody gets that too. So that's what has me do this business. And it just lights me up. I think I get more excited about my client successes than mine. Like, for example, I have a client I started working with just before this whole COVID thing happened. Mm-hmm. She had one assistant and she was on every job doing it herself. And then last month, she had record payroll for her 6 employees. And when she had COVID, she had 2 weeks off. So she ran record payroll and she didn't do any of the work herself.
Wow.
In 1 year of working together. So
that's amazing.
This is why I do what I do. And so the topic that we're talking about today, I love that somebody had requested this topic. So many small business owners judge their success and whether their business is thriving and doing well by whether or not they have cash in the bank. Oh, there's money in the bank, so I'm doing well. I'm making money. But that's not really an accurate picture. And if you and like I have a client that always struggled, like, oh, things are great because I have money in my bank. But then he would be surprised when all of a sudden he was having shortfalls because he didn't have control over his numbers. He didn't have the expectation. He didn't know what was coming.
Yeah.
So many people, when I say budget, what do you think? Like, do you have a good feeling or a bad feeling about it?
Me personally, I have anxious feelings about it.
And
Yeah.
it's typical.
Yeah.
And so people think budget is restrictive, it's
Yeah.
too much work, it's hard, like all these negative things.
Mm-hmm.
And all a budget is if you make the money you expect to make and you pay the expenses that you expect to pay, do you have money left over in the end?
Mm.
And if you can have power over that, and the key thing is that you figure that out while you still have time to do something about it. Most people work really hard and like throwing pasta against the wall, hoping it's going to stick, hope at the end of the year they'll have a profit because they worked really hard.
Right.
And a budget is just in advance. Oh, let's see. If things go the way I expect it, will I have money left over? If you don't like the number, you still have time to do something about it.
Mm.
You can either do something to make more money or cut your expenses or a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So
And
it's fine.
yeah, and so do you, when you work with your clients on this type of budgeting, do you do a year to year forecast and then chunk it month by month, or do you do it by quarter? How do you guide small business owners and entrepreneurs to use this?
So it kind of depends on what state of business that they're in. If you've been in business for a little while, the easiest way to start a budget is look at your financial statements from the prior year.
Mm-hmm.
Just run your trial balance or your balance sheet and your income statement. And now, do you expect it to be higher or lower? So if you start off with what you did last year, do you expect to make more? So then you bump up your revenue numbers. Your expenses, are they staying the same? Does anything cost more? Did you add more? And you just adjust that. And then that's your budget.
Mm.
You're just predicting the way things are going to go. And then you just keep checking against it. Like every month, how are you tracking? Are you tracking well? And if you look at your prior year, the other thing that's really good to know is, do you have a cyclical business? Like a lot of people know that there are certain months that they are maybe really slow. Like, yeah, summer is a really bad month for me. I make all my money at the end of the year. I make my money here. If you know that in advance, you could plan for the slow periods.
Right.
Instead of being surprised and struggling and being like, oh my God, I can't eat this month.
What about folks like me, for example, who just launched their business this year, 2021? You know, what would you do for folks who are just starting out and don't have a year prior to use as a baseline or to balance against? What would you recommend for those folks?
So starting from the beginning, okay, so what are you selling? And what do you expect? Like, and be reasonable and be like, okay, I have these programs, these offerings. How many clients do I have? How many am I targeting? Like, what's my goal?
Right.
And then just project that out to the end of the year. The expenses that you know you're paying, annualize that. Things that you're starting, I think I'm going to have to add, Facebook ads. I'm going to need marketing budget. Let me see what would I expect? And you just guess. And you can always adjust it. But I would just start off with that. Just what do you expect to spend and what do you expect to make?
And do you have any particular tools or resources that you would recommend for the tracking? Is there a particular app, or is it just a spreadsheet, or is it, and it depends based on the business?
So if you, your general ledger package, if you don't have one, I recommend you get one.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I used to use QuickBooks, now I switched to Zoho, and I do the Zoho books for that. Before, when I was first starting out and I didn't want to spend the money, I did it with Excel. It's a little bit more work, and then when you're doing the comparison and when it's not as automated, there's more room for error, and there's a little bit more effort that has to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible to do it that way too.
So it's sounding like that making the investment upfront could be useful in terms of automating and saving that time that it would take to do everything manually.
Absolutely. You can always make more money. You can't make more time. So I have several stories and examples in my past of when I decided, I don't want to give you my money. I'll just give you my time. I'll do it myself. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do it myself. And it would take me twice as long, or sometimes more than that. Instead of doing my zone of genius, instead of doing revenue producing activities, I was off busy doing the other stuff.
Yeah, that's a great reminder and example for us to stay in that zone of genius, right? And to outsource the other things, because our time is precious. It's a very valuable commodity. And if we're busy trying to figure out Excel or whatever, then it might prevent us from, as you mentioned, doing what we love. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
My pleasure.
You mentioned budgeting. What else? What are some other ways that we can know our numbers as we're building our business?
So one is to have your accounting up to date. So many people don't bother doing their bookkeeping. They don't enter the receipts. They're like, I'll deal with it later. I'll give my accountant a big bucks and let them figure it out. For a variety of different reasons. Some people think, I'm just too busy. I got to do my revenue producing activities. So I'm going to do the thing that's making me money, and I don't have time to do that. And that's fine. But then hire an accountant or a bookkeeper or somebody that's going to keep the numbers up to date. Because if you keep it current, then you have the power to see when there's still time to react, instead of after the fact, like, oh, I had such a big loss and my business results were terrible. Too bad, like business sucked this past year. Sorry, I should watch.
Oh, that's fine. You can say things suck. It's all good.
But instead of, oh, last month didn't go as planned, now what am I going to do this month to make up for it? Like now there's still time to actually take some actions, instead of at the end of the year being like, oh, yay, or oh, and have it be like it's a surprise.
Right.
Like, the financial statements tell a story, and they're telling the story of your business, and you get to decide, is it a love story? Is it a mystery? Is it a tragedy?
I love that. This writer and storyteller and sharer is loving that metaphor of it telling. I think that will motivate me to be more interested, I guess, invested in the budgeting piece, because as I mentioned, it does give me some anxiety, and I know that's my own limiting beliefs and blocks around money that I'm sure a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs can relate as they're getting their feet wet and stepping out into the unknown of business ownership.
So
go
ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask about the, you mentioned the making sure how to make the adjustments and whatnot. Do you recommend doing that at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month? Is there a perfect time, or again, is it, and it depends based on your business?
It's more important to be consistent. And when is the best time for you? if you're really slammed at the beginning of the month with your business, and depending on your business cycle, then do it at the end of the month. It's more important to be consistent.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So we have the, the budgeting piece of it. You talked about having the bookkeeping or some sort of ledger in place. Are there other tips that would help us know our numbers?
Absolutely. So a common mistake that people make is your business profitable? And like, for the thing that's making you the money, so many people, and it's been a struggle with some, like, I have a business. I'm also a photographer, and I have my dad and I have a business, and he's like, when we sell the pictures and the art, he's like, I sold a piece. Great. For how much? And it's more than I made it. It's more than I paid to make it. So he thinks it's great. So if you take a look, so your gross profit on your sales, whatever your revenue producing thing is. Yes, you want to take a look at how much you make. That's the revenue. And then all the costs that it takes to make the thing or the service that you're providing. So that's your cost of goods sold. So it's, if you are making something, it's a little bit easier because you have tangible costs.
Right.
If you're selling something, like for me, one of my costs of goods for my coaching is my Zoom and my being able to have the platform to be able to have my video chats with.
Right.
So you want to include that, but you also want to see the things that are the costs related to getting it out and make sure that you're making money after you take out those expenses. Because a lot of people don't consider the cost the cost you incur to actually make the product, but also the cost to be in business.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I know, especially for coaches, as you mentioned, folks that have services versus tangible products, that can be difficult from a pricing standpoint, right? And that also has to deal with confidence and feeling that,
Absolutely.
Attaching the worth of your service to building your clientele. What advice would you give for coaches or other folks like us who are starting, who are trying to figure out the value of what they're offering so that it does take those things into account that you mentioned, the cost of things?
Some of it is looking at like competitive, because this is another thing across the board, whether it's service-based business or a product. I see so many people, because of their lack of confidence or lack of ability to figure out what their numbers are, will undercut everybody else. So one, it doesn't reflect kindly on your value, because people look and say, well, if she's charging bargain prices, she's probably worth that, because you get what you pay for. But then you think about, and if you continue to do that, you won't stay in business. You have a hobby and you're not going to thrive and you're not going to survive, so you won't end up staying in business. And in the process, you are reflecting poorly on everybody else in the business that's actually paying for their overhead and pricing it properly. If you undercut them too much, then you're not doing anybody any good. So yeah, the charging way too little, it makes it seem like your value isn't as good, and you're hurting everybody else in the process too.
Well, that's a great perspective to take, right? Because it's not just about you, solopreneur. It does impact all the other parties that are involved as you build your business. So that makes a lot of sense. What are some other ways that we can know our numbers? I'm learning so much. And if
Yeah.
they're, if we're at a stopping point, you're like, I don't have any more, Rowena, but I'm sure knowing your experience in the corporate world and all of your success, I'm sure you have. We can talk for hours about this.
We certainly could. So one of the things I'm really excited about is I created a course for an online business academy that's starting. And I got so excited about what I produced that I am selling a similar version from myself too, to share it because it's so great. My new course is Get Paid Now. And it's all about invoicing and collections. So how to get your invoices paid faster. And if they're not paid on time, how to collect them without damaging the relationship.
Ooh.
And one of the reasons, or one of the things that kind of spurred that, I was working with a company that the gentleman that was responsible for all of the invoicing did a really good job considering he had most of it in his head. He did not have the systems that I recommend and that we spoke about before.
Gotcha.
And we started working together and I ran an accounts receivable aging report, which if you don't know, it's a report that lists all of your outstanding invoices and how old it is. How long are they outstanding? So are they a week, a month, 3 months? How much money is out there? So I ran this report and he realized that there were thousands of dollars left on the table that hadn't been invoiced.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, we can invoice that one and we can invoice that because there were like additional invoices on the job, the project that hadn't been invoiced. So especially for coaches that might be doing periodic payments, if you don't know and you don't actually look to see what's outstanding, what's due, what's past due.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an easy report to run if you have a general ledger system. You push a button and it just generates on demand whenever you want to see it.
Again, the power of automation right there at your fingertips to show you where you are leaving money on the table. I cannot believe that's a great illustration of that, right? Because especially if you're building the business and you're doing the things and you're marketing and you're trying to build your client base, sometimes, those invoices go off by the wayside and you're so busy trying to collect new business that there's
right. And you haven't collected on the old stuff.
Yeah. That's a great tip. And it sounds like that again, it all can be included in that ledger system. That sounds like the money right there. Well, money is probably the wrong word. Like the core, right, of how to build these systems in place. So,
and while we're talking about accounts receivable and invoices, here's another thing to consider. Look at the timing of everything. Because if you actually have to pay for expenses, like if it's a project and you have to actually incur any expenses related to the project, or you have to pay for anything related to your goods or your services, you want to look at when you have to pay versus when you actually get revenue received. Because if you're actually taking out loans or putting things on your credit card because the cash flow is off because you have to pay for things in advance before you collect them,
right,
that's not the best way to manage your business.
That makes a lot of sense. Planning out not just, you mentioned the cyclical nature of businesses, but having a sense of when things are due and when things need to get paid versus when the money is coming in, when you're receiving that income. That sounds like just some planning up front that's going to pay off so much down the line, so that it can. And then once you have that automation in there, it seems like a beautiful system synergy to get things rolling in and out.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you have this course. What are some other offerings for folks who want to learn from you and learn the ledger system and the processes that you've laid out today?
Well, I created a great checklist.
Ooh.
Great. Well, I think it's great.
Sure did.
Well, no, I've heard some good feedback. I just the way it sounded when I said that, I'm like, to help you to know your numbers.
Ooh.
And I'll give you, it's actually on my website under resources, and I can give you the link as well.
Yeah.
So it's a free download that everybody can have and use. I would print it out, and it gives you prompts for, and I would use it every week. Like, what are the things? Did you enter all of your income? And you can check it off. I like checking things off. I'm a list girl. I like.
Oh, yes, you're in good company.
Have you ever written something that you've already done on the list just so you could cross it off?
Yeah, I gotta cross it off. Yeah,
I'm like, oh wait, I did that before. Okay, let's write it down so I can cross it off. Like, true confession.
Oh no! Listen, a lot of us in this group and all the folks out there, we love a good to-do list. We love the feel of crossing things off. So that sounds like a fantastic downloadable. And you said you would recommend doing it every week.
Yep.
So just to get you prepared, what, like Sunday night or something, or does it really matter?
Consistency is more important than what day of the week.
Okay.
As long as you do it, it's schedule time and schedule time for it. So one of the other classes that I teach is the productivity of profitability, where you actually, like, one of the things is plan the work and work the plan and schedule things. So the things that are most important, because if I don't have something in my planner, the likelihood that I'm going to get it done.
That's right.
So I have time for planning on my calendar. And I was having a tough time getting my bookkeeping done consistently too. And so I created an accountability group with 2 friends, and we meet every week to do our bookkeeping.
I love that.
And they actually suggested, because they've been getting so much from the 3 of us being together and some of the things that I've been sharing, that I think I might be creating a new offering for a group program. It's still coming. I'm creating it, but create something to make it work for you. If it's, so we created this accountability group, and every week, and there are weeks when I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I have other things that I would rather be doing. I have a big event coming up. I want to work on this. But nope, because we have the group plan, the accountability group, it gets done.
That's awesome, Nancy. I think that any accountability in general is always good, to just so that you have colleagues that can check in on you, but especially related to the bookkeeping. I mean, just in the past 25 minutes plus that you've been speaking to all these important things we have to keep in mind, the fact that you can then create a community, a group of others that y'all can check in on each other and make sure that things are getting done. That seems awesome. And for me, I'm collaborative by nature. So anything to do with having groups and friends to help with that's a great pro tip. I love that. And developing, I mean, and then that's another great example, right? In terms of accounts receivable and getting the income flowing in. Now you saw this need and developing another offering, another program out of it. That's fantastic that you're able to use your own experience, right? Of, okay, I needed this accountability, even though you're clearly the expert. I think it's beautiful to share and show that, yeah, you need that accountability and help too. Just because this stuff, knowing it and putting it in practice can be a little difficult, especially if it's new, right? Especially if it's something we need to get into our calendars.
Yes. So if any of your listeners are interested in hearing about this new accountability group program, then have them email me or contact me, and they'll be the first ones to hear as soon as I officially launch it.
That's exciting. Yeah, we'll definitely in the show notes and in the comments we'll post your email and all the information that you have, that checklist for sure, because these are, my goodness, such tangible tools that we need, right? To be in business, we need these things to be successful.
Yes.
You know, we can ideate and have all the good intentions in the world and want to serve and help people, but if we don't have that structure in place, if we aren't keeping track and having that bookkeeping, that ledger, then it's, as you mentioned, you said it yourself, it's just not going to go well. You're just not bound to be successful if those structures aren't in place.
Yep.
Well, I mean, goodness gracious, I feel like you've given so many good tips and so many awesome resources. Is there anything else, any other ways that folks can connect with you? Any other promotions, courses, offers? It sounds like that you have so much value to give and so many things going on that, I'd love for you to share.
Thank you. So yes, you can find me. It's Empowered with Nancy. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. LinkedIn, it's still my name. I haven't created the business one yet, but I have LinkedIn pros that have been advising me that I need to fix that. So yeah, and my website, empoweredwithnancy.com. So that's where you can always find out what's coming up and what's going on. I have the Get Paid Now class that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. The next one is going to be September 24th on the Friday.
Okay. So
it's a master class. And it's also a workshop where there's actually going to be time for you to learn how to get your invoices paid faster and create your invoice too. So we'll, as you can tell, I'm the kind of woman that likes to teach and likes to get the stuff done. So we will get it done.
We are here for it because you know what? You can get all the knowledge from all the courses, but oftentimes it just sits in the notebook, right? So I love that format of putting pen to paper or whatever.
You know me so well.
I'm speaking to myself as well. I mean, I have notebooks from all the things, but I love that you integrate. Okay, let's actually get something done. So it's just a one day workshop?
It's actually an hour and a half. We're gonna bang it out and get it done.
90 minutes, y'all. 90 minutes. Learn how to get paid. That's fantastic. So we'll definitely share that information so that folks can sign up and get more information about you. Is there anything else? I know I appreciate you answering all of my questions. I feel that I'm speaking on behalf of, especially for me and my tribe as spiritual entrepreneurs, these accounting numbers doesn't come so easily to us. So that's why I was just so fascinated. And based on my conversations with other colleagues, coaches, healers, and friends, I think this is going to be such a valuable session for folks to check out and to get all those tools and resources. Any final thoughts as we wrap up for today?
Yes. So one, if you're struggling and you really need help, contact me. I would love to have a conversation and to see. And because you mentioned, you reminded me that your community is such a spiritual community that often gets intimidated or flustered about the numbers and about money.
Yes.
Let me create this context. So where the intention goes, the energy flows. So if you're a spiritual person thinking, oh, the numbers, bookkeeping, that's hard. Well, if you start paying attention to your money and you put focus on it, let's make it grow.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, I received that. And again, as you mentioned right at the start of this, the good timing with me just coming back from vacation, this chat was good timing because just literally a day or so ago, I told myself, Rowena, let's get focused. And I started to drill down and do some of the planning that you mentioned. Because I think
Great.
I've been a little bit loosey goosey for a couple months. So I want to end the year strong and hit 2022 running. Because my 1 year will be in February next year. So I want to get all these good structures in place. So I thank you again. And I'm sure so many other friends out there thanks you for, yes, putting the intention there is a great first step, just to not be so intimidated.
Yeah. And I'll let you know so that you could join my new program too for the accountability group.
Absolutely. As I said, your girl loves her accountability. So
I would love to have you.
Wonderful. Well, folks, you heard it here. Join Nancy's accountability group that's coming up. I will post all the links also for that Get Paid class. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic 90 minutes, y'all. 90 minutes to learn how you can make more money, not leave money on the table like that client that she shared. So until then, feel free to reach out to Nancy. As she mentioned, she's here to serve and to help you. And next week, I'm so excited. We're going to have my good friend, Vince Warnock. We're going to be talking about his story about marketing authenticity and how, similar to you, Nancy, actually left that corporate job, that like top stressful, and just went back and found his calling, his voice, and that is to serve people and to help others using the gifts and talents that we share. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. Until then, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.